All right, we're back with the midpoint marvelous facts. Carl's going to take over and share what he's found about some time displaced X-Men and our boy coming up, Venom, as far as first appearances and some random information goes. Carl, go ahead, man.
Our time displaced X-Men. This group of X-Men's first appearance was in All New X-Men #1, January of 2013. I couldn't find anything really crazy about them. They haven't been around too long.
Yeah, what I did, I looked up just the fact on James Howlett instead, just because he was featured in the book, and yeah, they haven't. I mean, obviously they've been up to crazy stuff, but nothing like outstandingly nuts that we like to point out or highlight. So I found that for Howlett, I'm sorry, Jimmy Hudson. I keep saying James Howlett, but the reason I keep saying that is because they have the same initials, JH. Jimmy Hudson, James Howlett. And James and Jim is kind of like a nickname for each other. You know what I'm saying? So they got that whole thing going for them. But that was kind of one of the points in creating the character, is that he'd have like similarities to the 616 Wolverine, but not be an exact copy. And then Jimmy's birth also matches his Earth 616 counterpart. So I was confused by that fact, in that I don't know if they mean the exact date or like the same circumstances, like born a mutant with bone claws. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
They didn't really clarify what that fact meant, but that's what I found as far as that goes. Trevi, you got anything to share as far as fact goes for time displaced X-Men?
No, I got no facts.
Jimmy Howlett or Jimmy Hudson.
No, nothing other than what I mentioned earlier about his how he controls that adamantium that goes over his claws.
Yeah, and he essentially has taken over the role of Wolverine in the Ultimate Universe after the original Wolverine in the Ultimate Universe passed on, correct?
Yeah. During he picked up during the Nick Spencer run, he took over. He's on the cover. It looks pretty dope, the art.
Yeah, so he's a replacement Wolverine in that universe. How about Venom? What we got for first appearances Venom wise?
So for Venom's first appearance, it was in the Amazing Spider-Man #300 in May of 1988. So instead of trying to find a crazy fact about Venom, because I figured you guys would get something cool about that, I decided we'd play a little game with Brandon. There have been 8 different people to be Venom in the Marvel Universe. Can you name them all?
I can name probably 5. 5, I would say. I know Eddie Brock. I know Flash Thompson, Lee Price, Mark Goggin. That's 4. Peter Parker is 5. There's a chick that I don't know her name. I want to say Angela something. And that's it. That's what I got. Who'd I miss?
All right, so you missed Anne Wing, Patricia Robertson, and Angela Fortuno.
Yeah, and that Angela one, I couldn't remember that last name, but yeah, they did say there were 3 women to wear the Venom symbiote. That it wasn't long stretches, but the latest one is that Angela girl who was in some of the End of Space Night stuff.
Yeah, and they didn't give any information in the Wikipedia page about what issues they were in, or else I'd have all that information for everyone besides Peter Parker and Eddie Brock, who...
Yeah, the Venom symbiote's a little bit of a slut. It gets around at times. I found, as far as Eddie Brock goes, who I don't know if I would say he's my favorite Venom anymore. I might even say Flash has taken that crown for me personally.
Best?
As my favorite Venom to read about, just most interesting character, you know.
I agree. I think you're right. I think Flash is probably the best Venom.
Yeah, like it was my favorite period of the book, I would say. But anyway, as far as Eddie goes, he's the only character to have bonded with 3 symbiotes: Venom, Anti-Venom, and Toxin, who is Toxin's a spinoff of Carnage's symbiote. Anti-Venom is its own symbiote altogether that basically counteracts the other symbiotes. So yeah, he's had on all 3 of those I guess you could say symbiotes. So yeah, but personally for me, I loved Flash Thompson Space Knight. I thought that was awesome. Made the symbiote really its own character in an interesting way, and we'll get into some more Venom 150 here. Actually now, and I'll kind of tell you more in detail about the whole Flash Thompson saga.
Did you ever read the Rick Remender run?
Not all of it. I've read, not the entire series all the way through all the volumes, but I was in and out of it, and I loved like that whole battle suit he had, and shit like that, which really grabbed my attention at first. Because I was like everybody else, pissed off that Venom was quote unquote a good guy, just on a good guy, which I thought maybe took away some of the interesting things about it, but that didn't turn out to be the case. So. Well, why don't we just waste no more time and get right into it? Venom is going to be the first Marvel book with the honor of joining the Legacy Numbering Club with number 150 this week. It also gets the honor of having an inflated price tag at $5.99. But there is a ton of shit in this issue. Some of it, I guess you could say, varies in quality. So I have like I don't know, I guess a conflicted reasoning for my buy, borrow, or forget it at the end of things. But the Venom title has a huge creative team. Let me pull that up here real quick because I just finished the review for it on Weird Science. And if you guys interested in those at all, we do Marvel Monday reviews over at that website, WeirdScienceDCComics.com, and we'll usually have the 3 books we talk about here written out in review format over there. But this has 3 different stories in it, but I've only found 2 creative teams for those 3 stories.
The last story is a reprint. I'm
just a reprint. Sure. I thought it was
because it says. You'll give the 2 stories. I'm flipping to get to the
last page.
This last one. Yeah.
Okay. For our first story, we have Mike Costa as the writer, with Tradmore as the artist, and then for our second story, we have Robbie Thompson, who was the Flash Thompson Venom Space Knight creative team writer, and he comes in for that second story with Gerardo Sandoval and Dano Sanchez Almara. And I love how they did, Flash's Venom and the whole art style they had going for him. And, that was part of the reason for him being some of my favorite just Venom stories overall. But anyway, the first story is, again, before we get started, what's the deal with that third part of the book?
So the third part of the book, it is David Michelini as writer, Ron Lim as penciler, John Livesay as inker, and Lee Luffridge as colorist. I think it's a reprint because when I did the Wikipedia for David Michelini, he wrote for Amazing Spider-Man back in the 70s.
I got you. Yeah, so that's probably most likely an old Venom reprint is the third story. So we won't really cover that too much, but we will cover the first 2 parts, which are important to current Venom continuity, if I ever say that word right. Continuity, yes. That I still won't ever remember it. It comes out continuity when I say it. But anyway, the start of this issue is just Eddie kind of in a dream state. Basically reminiscing about past events as Venom and gaining access to the suit and all he's been through with it. And what happens is he ends up springing up from, this dream and these thoughts. And he's kind of looking out the window, and he's got like the Venom symbiote kind of like sitting on his shoulder like the devil, telling him, come on, let's go out there. Let's go do what we used to do, kind of mentality is what the Venom symbiote is trying to bring out of Eddie Brock, As Eddie is hesitant, but he goes out anyway. And what he quickly does is run into a group of basically robbers trying to do a B&E on this building. And I'm trying to see if it's an Alchemax building or not. I don't know if they say. But what happens is, Eddie arrives on the scene in the Venom suit. These dudes are all armored up with like tasers and shit that really don't affect Venom in any way, shape, or form, other than just totally pissing him off. And he starts just launching these dudes left and right. And there is just blood splattering all over the place. So he is back up to his old tricks as like Eddie Brock Venom, full-blown anti-hero, where like he's stopping a crime in progress, but it has no problem at all, killing dudes to stop what's happening, So the last guy comes running out of the building that Eddie didn't stop, and he's got what they came for, which is the weirdest thing I've ever seen somebody rob. It's basically a genetically enhanced tomato, I guess. I don't know. I don't know what they're getting at. It also completely disappoints Venom because he's like, what am I stopping these dudes robbing a tomato for? Even though they claim it's worth billions. I don't know what the fuck's going on with this tomato. But the cops arrive, which are loud, obnoxious sounds Venom hates. So he just drops the tomato and leaves from the scene of the crime, finds a nearby New York City rooftop, does the classic, peel his head back type thing. And Eddie emerges, and Eddie's like feeling conflicted about how in this Venom suit he treated, just basically, he says, butchered, quote unquote, these bad guys, because he doesn't feel like they were doing something worth being butchered over. You know what I'm saying? Like,
and he did basically butcher them. You go back to that page and head smashed into the wall with blood splatter everywhere, and
there's another guy on the ground with blood all around him.
Yeah.
So what Eddie does, he leaves this rooftop and he goes to the church. And I say the church because it's the church where he originally got control of the symbiote, where Spider-Man was in the bell tower and it left him. And he's trying to, think things over in this church when these two like cracked out looking dudes come knocking on the door, bugging him. I guess hooligans have been hanging out in this church like they tend to do in comic books. But long story short, Venom scares him away, and the priest comes out and says, "Oh, thank you, sir, for, he's like, thank you for scaring the bad guys away. You seem like a troubled soul in church late at night." And they had this talk about basically love, and Brock is alluding to like this relationship he has to this priest. The priest has no idea it's with a symbiote, quote unquote. He thinks it's, possibly male, female, male relationship type thing going on. And Eddie basically gets up and storms off because he's not 100% on board with what the priest is saying, but he wants to think about it alone. And the symbiote 100% doesn't like what the priest is saying, because the priest is alluding to like leaving this unhealthy relationship. While Eddie's considering all this, he gets attacked by Scorpion in his super Scorpion robot suit. And these two go at it. Mark Gaughan has a few secret weapons at his disposal, having once warned the Venom symbiote for a period of time. And, as it's like shedding off of Eddie and things are going poorly, the symbiote does muster just enough energy to distract Scorpion, and Eddie punches him out. And the pair of Venom disappear back to the church. And when Eddie comes to, because he kind of like blacks out, has an episode, blacks out, he finds a dead priest in this church, and you're kind of left to believe like the symbiote did it, although you're not 100% sure because Eddie has no memory of it. We didn't see what happened, and those goons were scared out that looked pretty cracked out earlier. So, it could be him confused, or it could be the symbiote just being a total asshole with Eddie in possession of it again.
I mean, the symbiote basically says he did it. He said, no one's going to get between us again.
Yeah.
And then you pan out, and he's holding the priest, and you see covered in blood, and he's got blood on him.
Here's just, my mini problem with all that is they spent so much time, like quote unquote, curing this symbiote. And I understand when it was in Lee Price's possession, like he was a dirtbag with it. So maybe that has, wanted it to kill and be bad again, and have a need for. Part 2 of the story, I think, sheds a little more light on that, and we're going to get into that now, which is the story with Robbie Thompson, and it's just a quick, essentially backup, highlighting how Flash Thompson lost the suit, which is cool, but very confusing as well. So you think you're going to get this cool little story, quick, about how the symbiote left Flash. And what we get is we find out he's fighting this random bad guy that I don't know, or I don't remember where he's from, because it seems to pull this trick where it blasts the symbiote again with a sonic, but I think it's like this special sonic blast that makes the symbiote completely mad, and now is kind of like a quote unquote explanation for its behavior lately. You know what I'm saying? For who it's been joining up with, instead of just being good, because it immediately, once it gets blasted, instead of sticking around, runs away from Flash, and he can't get possession of it again. And then the kind of the end of it is like Flash trying to deal with the symbiote leaving him, and the symbiote being sick on its own, obviously, because it doesn't have a host. And that's when it ends up joining up with the homeless man that we see it just kind of sucking the life out of before it joins with Lee in issue 1 of this relaunch. So it fills in the blanks as far as that goes, but I'm jumping to a lot of conclusions when I explain that to you, because the story doesn't tell you. Yeah. So I think that's what happened. And it looks like what might have happened if you know a lot about the previous Venom story. But if you don't, you're like, what the fuck just happened, and then, like Carl mentioned, the third story is just a throwback story, essentially just showing you how Venom used to act and how that's mirroring how he's acting now with Eddie, I think, is the purpose to it, if you ask me, or I'm looking too far into it and more than what it really is, other than filler for the issue. So yeah. Buy, borrow, or forget it altogether. For me, since this is my pick, I want to call this a buy, but it's really just a borrow for me right now, based on price and me jumping to a lot of conclusions, because the issue is kind of leaving you hanging with a suspenseful cliffhanger, but also not giving you a lot of answers with why the symbiote is acting the way it's acting right now. So it's not a fantastic book. It's something you'll want to check out if you're a Venom fan. And if you're not, and the price tag is scaring you away until you listen to what we say about it for some reason, it's truly a borrow-esque type book for me. How about you guys? Anybody who read it and has some thoughts on it? What do you think? Buy, borrow, forget it altogether? What are your thoughts?
Oh, man. I'm going to say borrow too. I mean, the 3 short stories, the first one was good. The second one was okay. The third one was good too, but it's just a throwback, so it's nothing new writing style for it. The art was fantastic all the way through, though.
Yeah.
Just for
I had
it's not worth $5.99.
Yeah, I know. I had a problem with the first story arcs art, because I like the Gerardo Sandoval Robbie Thompson pairing. Not that Robbie writes a better story, because Costa's been doing good, but
yeah, Costa.
The art pairing for a Venom title is just so much better than this like video game. Like it's like what are those episodic video game makers? They make
Telltale?
Games.
It reminds me of Telltale video game art. That's what it looks like. The first story anyway.
See, I still like it.
I liked that. I mean, I didn't read this, but I was flipping through. I flipped through more than a few times. I really liked it. I don't like the Inhumans covers that he's been doing, the Secret Warriors ones, but I actually liked going through the art here. I enjoyed the Geraldo, whatever it is, Sandoval art.
Yeah,
and
that's my favorite art in the book. The middle story is
the middle story is the best.
I like the
The
Ron Lim
first
stuff,
story is
too.
just like a change from how it's been, and I just liked how it was before the change. You know what
Now,
I'm saying? That's all.
I want to ask because I'm not sure, but I know you guys said that Dave Michelini used to write it and Ron Lim used to pencil it, but this stuff kind of looks new. Like
Yeah, it does.
it,
Like
it looks.
I think it's just
Do you think it's like redone, like they rewrote it and redrew it,
I
but they
think it's
did it a
just
little differently?
a remastered story is
Yeah,
all.
because it looks really good. Like I like the
Yeah.
Ron Lim art here. Like Venom looks classic, and it does
Yeah.
have like the tinge color to it.
Hmm.
Like it looks like the
I
paper's
think
been
it's just
doubled.
like, when they reprint those True Believers
Yeah,
and
yeah,
the
yeah.
older stories and they kind of look like just toned up a little bit on a computer. I think that's just what it is.
Because this looks so fresh. Like it looks like it was almost done recently. Like it looks really good. But
Yeah.
I love the tinge to the paper color that gives it like that nostalgia feel, like it's from the '90s on that
Yeah, I
old
know.
print.
I'm always a sucker for when things look
Cool.
like that too.
I actually bought it, but I can't give a buy, borrow, forget or anything because I didn't read it yet because I forgot to because I'm a schmuck. So
Well, that's all right. What we'll do is Trevin, I'm sure we'll read it by next week, and he will at the beginning let us know his quick 30-second rundown of Venom. But that's all we got for today.
Most
So
definitely.
did you say buy? You said borrow, right, Carl?
I said borrow. It would have been
Yeah.
a buy if the story would have been more
Just a little more. I
cohesive.
know it was
But that
very
those
like
pages
it
with
felt like
the
pages were missing to me in the first.
yeah, it felt like stuff was missing. But those pages at the end between the second and third story where it showed all the Venom covers,
Yeah, that
that
was
I liked
cool.
a
I did
lot.
like that. Yeah, it shows you how they got up to 150. What issues are counted on the way up to 150, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Especially if
But yeah,
you're a Venom collector and you want to put them in order, and you're a nut like me in that regards. That's cool as hell.
but yeah, borrow for me.
Yeah, borrow for me too. So just to recap for the day, because I did chart this all down this week for us. We had basically, if we voted it and decided as a group and averaged it out, Captain America Steve Rogers as a borrow. For you two, I said forget, but that would get a borrow overall. X-Men Blue, we all unanimously agreed to borrow. And then that was the same for Venom 150. Me and Carl think it's a borrow. Overall, so kind of not an overall great week, but not, if
It's
you
not
picked
bad.
up the book, you don't want to punch yourself in the face for doing so. I guess you could say.
yeah.
No garbage like last week.
Yeah. There was no Generation X, although I listened to the episodes to make sure they're produced well and we all sound decent. And I just laughed my ass off at Trevor describing Generation X. So if this is your first episode, go back and listen to that one, and I dare you not to laugh. But that's it for us this week. Again, guys, if you're looking to get a hold of us, we got an email address. It's marvelmadnesspod@gmail.com. You can find us on Twitter @madnessmarvel1. And again, always on Podbean, iTunes, give us a review, hit those comments, let people know. We jumped big time last week, so we want to see another big jump this week. Type in Marvel Comics into either of those searchers, and our podcast now comes up in the top 5 or 6. So you should see us pretty easily now. That's good news, and that's how to reach us. For next week, we got 3 more books coming at you. My Spider title, and pretty much the only Spider title coming out, which is why I picked it, was Spider-Gwen number 20. It's a cool story, though. It's about discovering who Earth 65 Wolverine is, I guess. We'll find
that's
out.
cool.
So that's pretty cool. Carl, what's your hero book for the week?
I have settled down and I decided it's going to be Doctor Strange number 21.
Okay, I thought you were going to change your mind on what we had written down there.
It was close for me to change my mind. I was going to do Secret Empire Uprising, but I looked at it. I read the solicits for both, and I decided that with Doctor Strange focusing on the Dark Force dimension, and that's something that was really interesting to me out of Secret Empire number 2, and something I wanted to get a little bit more information on. I figured we would cover it for the podcast.
Yeah, that's a good idea, actually, because I'm sure the Uprising is going to be just kind of a setup issue, and we can join and see what's going on with that a little later.
It's pretty much a setup issue for Black Widow training the champions.
So we'll check in on that one later. For those of you disappointed by Carl's choice, if you are, I'm not. That the Dark Force stuff does sound kind of cool.
Which you shouldn't be. I will give it a buy, borrow, or forget it altogether on the podcast. It won't be a big rundown, but I will give it something.
Yeah, we'll
because I will read
over it. And then how about you, Trevitt, for the I always say IVX stuff. I mean Inhumans or X-Men stuff.
I'm going to be doing Cable #1 by James Robinson and Carlos Pacheco.
So those are the books. If you follow us along and you want to pick up at the store what we're going to be highlighting, those are the books to grab next week. But until that time, when the madness continues, we're all done here on this side, guys. So we will talk to you same time next week. Adios.
Later.
Peace.